Police across U.S. given new UFO handbook as they warn craft, quote, pose significant safety risks. What? Really? Okay, hold on. Let me read just a little bit of this. Police chiefs of America's largest cities have published the first guide about UAPs, which details chilling encounters and how officers can report such incidents. The 11-page document warned that unidentified flying objects pose significant safety risks to law enforcement air support units, urging teams to be vigilant when in helicopters. What? Okay. The report also highlights stories from officers who claim to confront UFOs, specifically one in 2023 where a law employee saw a, quote, triangle craft with green lights gliding through the sky, end quote, before a local resident said something ran nearby, whatever that means. The police executives created the reference because it's in the interest of law enforcement to be aware of trends and reporting on UAP due to the unknown threat they may pose. Okay. Now, as just a clear, very basic disclosure space, it makes sense to me that if we're going to have any kind of first contact, it would happen with our first responders, with police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, this type of bit. Because if something happens, let's say we're told ontological shock will ensue and everybody will lose their religions and stop paying taxes and stop going to work, all those things we're told regarding this first contact of whatever this happens to be, disclosure, big D disclosure, then, well, it stands to reason there would be some sort of pandemonium. And of course, when that happens, the sirens turn on and the cops show up and the fire department rolls in and the ambulance. So it makes a little bit of sense that in some capacity you would try and hand out to our first responders a UFO guide, the old, take me to your leader flowchart, just in case, right? And of course, I'm just being silly for half of this, but you get my point. It does make some sense. So is this real or is this not real? And this becomes a larger contextual question for me, because let's not put the cart before the horse. I don't care who gets credit for any of this until we have disclosure itself. So what is it? What are they hiding? And what do we need to know? And that's what's on my mind tonight as we go. But isn't it strange that, suddenly large cities in America are handing out UFO manuals, safety books, what do you call these? Handbooks to their officers. Strange, right? Anyway, hold the thought. We're going to be right back. Get a quick word from our sponsor. But there's a lot to this. And again, the more I learn about what's happening in the UFO world, the more I'm confused. And as you know from me, I'm the weirdest guy this side of the Tallahassee, probably, or at least, I'm up there on the list anyway, but you get the point. Is that why am I surprised with some of this wacky stuff happening when I talk about all manner of things that are way more weird than this? There's something here that makes my tinfoil tingle, and what is it? So I'm calling this, of course, Laws for Little Green Men, because why not, right? But UFO transparency trepidation and this ontological shock. Are we supposed to just stop? Let's say we find something out incredible about the nature of reality tomorrow. Are you all going to work? You're going to stay home, watch TV? What are you doing? Okay. So that's my first question. As part of this, we keep being told that the reason the citizens of the world are not ready for true disclosure is because of this ontological shock, because of this complete paradigm changing aspect of reality that will stop us from doing normal human things. I mean, I guess they assume we'll all just, go back to bed for years on end and watch TV or something. I mean, wouldn't that make you want to go outside a little more, look up at the sky a little more, find out what they're talking about a little more? I mean, I don't know. I think clearly they underestimate the will of the public and the interesting things that we're always talking about and considering together here, just on this show specifically. But not just us. There's a lot of other smart people in the world too. It's not just us. There's a lot of amazing folks out there thinking about these wild ideas quite often. And so, yeah, I don't know, this entire thing, and we've talked about this quite often in the past, that whole ontological shock bit, which is, the new buzzword for, UFOs in terms of why we can't have nice things. In this case, the nice things are UFO disclosure. It would be this ontological shock. All right. Well, I'm not so sure. I mean, I would be pretty jazzed. I would, maybe wake up early tomorrow to see how this transpires in the media, and recognize too, the funny part about that is I wouldn't necessarily turn on the TV to find out information, I would turn on the television and turn on these news, quote, news networks to find out the spin of what they would be trying to tell us. Because, of course, when something like this happens, when, some large event happens that's newsworthy, a lot of wild and crazy information kind of comes out at first, and then it, coalesces into the longer running narrative, which is, part of the conspiracy theory aspect of reporting and everything else, where they try and memory hole things, they highlight some things and not other things. It's it's normal. We're used to living in that world because we've basically grown up in it. But the problem is, and think of again something like the Trump shooting recently. Notice how that kind of came and went, and then we still don't have a motive. There's no actual. Almost no information. Almost nobody got fired. Just a whole manner of nuttiness that was part of that whole thing, and they've completely memory holed it as a result. And we're not talking politics tonight, so don't worry. It's just an example. And that's why I put up in the Discord, by the way, the Trump shooting thing, because I wanted us to drop all that stuff in there when it was fresh and see what happens, and then revisit that in several weeks and see what changed, what the official narrative has become. But the same thing goes back to 9/11. Yesterday was the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. Anniversary, it's probably a terrible term. Let's say commemoration. Remembrance of. And so the same thing. If you recall, there was a lot of really wild reporting as part of that incident that has now been sort of retconned and memory holed. And we're told that, you can't question that, or you're just a filthy conspiracy theorist. And by the way, I don't think I'm the guy that, is going to say that it was a government inside job. I wouldn't take that angle, because one, I've never done the deep dive in it. Two, I've never, let's say I've got a tinfoil hat, but my tinfoil isn't that thick. But I don't know. I could be wrong about everything. And that's the entire point about talking about this stuff, is because maybe I'm missing something that is a critical piece of that puzzle. But there's some really suspicious stuff about 9/11. And of course, really suspicious stuff about that Trump shooting. And so my point is that I would turn on the television to see the spin. I wouldn't necessarily be looking for information and taking notes in that regard. I would listen closely for what they wanted us to believe. And that, I think that plays no matter what, which is absolutely wild, right? But here's the thing. Okay, regarding this. So they're actually trying to push this information through. It's called the UAPDA. Again, like I said, the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Disclosure Act. And I'll go through some of this and read you the detail on this. But so they are trying to not only legislate this and put this UFO Transparency Act through Congress, but then at the same time, they're also doing this business from the Daily Mail, like I said, giving, police across U.S. given new UFO handbook as they warn craft, quote, pose significant safety risks, and a little bit further in the article, to helicopters. What? Okay, so does that mean, and so again, so just a rational guy thinking about UFOs and saying, all right, so if they're handing out actual information to police officers in large cities in the United States, or created this themselves even, and they're describing helicopters as being in danger from UFOs, well, isn't that some level of disclosure for us? Just the notion itself, because I want to know specifically where we had a UFO encounter a helicopter and it went bad for the helicopter. You get me? So what is this? It feels like, as always, there's this massive mind screw happening. It feels like everything's a psyop, and it feels like that when they give us this information, it makes me scratch my head and go, so what is real? What are we even talking about? Would that be disclosure? If the police department started, showing up on the scene and pulling out their UFO card and filling out their UFO rubric for the sighting, maybe not. I don't know. This stuff drives me nuts. But anyway, so a little bit more from this article, the Daily Mail. All this stuff is linked in the description if you want to check it out. So here we go. So okay, let's skip to this. So the organization, called the Major Cities Chiefs Association, or the MCCA, includes nearly 80 executives from major U.S. cities who work together to advance public safety through a range of initiatives, including community outreach, research and policy development, and now UFO investigations. What? right? Does this feel like it feels like a troll to me? So the guide, released in June, also includes details from America's investigations in UFO encounters, as well as the testimony of whistleblowers such as former United States Air Force officer and intelligence official David Grush, who we've talked about recently and often on the show. So one article shared the U.S. Congress UAP hearing held in 2023, which saw Grush testify about his knowledge about aircraft with non-human origins. Okay, like I said, but if these things are actually a danger to police helicopters, how come the FAA isn't handing these things out to, I don't know, say the airports around the world, right? The pilots' unions, or you see what I mean? Like there's like I always say, make it make sense. What the hell's going on here? This seems like another psyop to me. And again, as you guys know, I try to be as agnostic in all ways as possible and not believe any of this stuff, because you never know what the hell's really happening. I do know very specifically that there have been a lot of experiencers that see these things, and enough experiences, actual singular experiencers, do become data in some capacity. And so it's impossible for me to ignore it, because, well, that's why we're here, basically, to talk about the things that most people don't talk about. But then also the other part of it is, well, what's happening with this? And is this some level of disclosure? Are they setting us up for something? Are they preparing us with all of the, the television shows and the X-Files and, the Nope, the movie Nope? Or look, I don't know. No answers from me, just more questions. But this type of stuff, when I see it, it reminds me of just another psyop, just another prepping us for another control mechanism to roll out in a dire time or something, to use it as, fodder to get us, I don't know, hunkering down or something in a time of war. But of course, in this case, they get to say, the war comes from the little green men, or the contact, or whatever it is. I don't know. I have no idea. But basically, my question for you guys is, do you really think there would be that ontological shock? If we had, dare I say, and because of course this is the funny part, if first contact was made on the corner of, 5th and Pine Street, somewhere in any town, USA, and there was a Volkswagen van ran into a UFO that kind of hovered too low, to the ground or something. And so, the first responders show up, the sirens are blaring, and then, the cops are like, what do we do now? And so they pull out their UAP, UFO guidebooks, and, does this seem ridiculous? It seems ridiculous, right? I don't know. Like I said, I'm not saying UFOs are real. I'm not saying UFOs are fake. Okay. I'm saying that it seems like there is a narrative here where they want us to believe very specific things about whatever they are, whatever the notion is. Okay. And so the question becomes, what is this? And does it surprise you that they're actually sending out these UFO handbooks? And what about ontological shock? And what about, wrestling and wrangling for who gets credit for disclosure? For a disclosure, by the way, that has not yet come to pass. Okay? That's the part that just grinds my gears. Would you guys just clunk it out and tell us all the goods, and don't trot out Richard Doty again, who was a, Air Force disinformation officer from, the 60s. I don't want to hear from that guy. I don't want to hear from those people. Like, give us new information. If you've been studying UFOs for as long as we know you have, Project Blue Book and beyond, then give us something new, give us something relevant, give us something compelling. And don't play these stupid games where we're like, oh, well, now all the cops out there have these UFO handbooks where they can, do something while they're bored and waiting for something bad to happen. You get what I'm saying here? And look, I'm just a normal guy. I don't have any inside sources other than you guys, and I nobody tells me anything because I haven't reached out to that community for that exact reason. I don't want to be friends with Richard Dolan or any of these people, because if once you do, right, then they feed you secrets, and you got to keep the secrets. And no, let's just talk about what the hell's really happening out there. That's what's on my mind tonight.